Have you had an injury or even a surgery that's left a scar? Have you ever worked on your scar? And do you know why it is so important in your healing? Hi, my name is Dr. Ariane Missimer. I'm a functional medicine practitioner, doctor of physical therapy, registered dietitian, and owner of the Movement Paradigm Integrative Health Center in the Philadelphia area. And today we are going to dive into the topic of scars, how to assess them, how to treat them, and why are they so important that we do both of those. So let's first talk a little bit about what scars are. So if we look at this tensegrity model, we want to think about our fascial tissue is our three-dimensional network, our glue that holds us all together, our force transmission system. And what's very fascinating about the fascia, among so many things, is that we are able to create tension and elasticity. So what's really amazing about movement is that is what we are doing in any dynamic movement, whether that is walking, running, walking upstairs, whether that is breathing, whether that's the motility and mobility of our viscera and our organs. So when we have scars, what happens is that we form these cross links. So normally our fascial collagen fibers are like this, and when we have a scar, we form these cross links like this. So what happens is it makes the tissue strong, right? That's exactly what we want from a scar. It's making it strong, but it is not elastic, right? And as I showed, we need this elasticity of the tissue to be able to move freely, to be able to generate and transmit force through our body. So now let's dive into what do we do when we're doing scar releases? Well, first, a lot of times we think that we're breaking up scar tissue. So I hear that all the time. We're breaking things up. Well, we are not breaking anything up because fascial tissue requires thousands and thousands of pounds of force to break up. We would have to actually go in and with a cadaver, right, and cut the tissue. So we're not breaking it up. However, we are really influencing it from the sensory aspect because there's tons of sensory nerves in the fascia, and we are helping to improve the elasticity of the tissue by helping to realign the collagen fibers and create the elasticity in the tissue. That's our main goal. So with that said, scar assessment and scar work does not need to be very aggressive, but it should be very intentional. So who should do this? Any of you that have a scar. It doesn't matter how small the scar is, how old the scar is, and why you have the scar, because all of these can influence the surrounding and the distant tissues. So for example, if you have a C-section, you're going to have the superficial scar, but then it's also cutting through 7 layers of tissue. So in that particular area where the actual scar is on the outside, it can affect all of your abdominal muscles, but it can also affect all of your viscera. So that's one of the underlying potential root causes of something like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or any gut dysregulation. So if you've had let's say a tummy tuck, if you've had breast implants, if you've had a scar from an injury, all of these things can affect, again, the surrounding tissues as well as distant tissues because fascia connects us, right? So we have fascial lines that are all through the body, connecting us from the bottom of our feet to the top of our toes. Something to consider before you even assess your scar is recognizing the emotional component and potential trauma of scars. So depending on why you have the scar, there can be significant emotional responses that can happen as it relates to addressing the scar. So you really want to make sure that you either work with a professional to do this, you do this in a safe place, and also that you honor any emotions that may come up because ultimately every scar has a story. So this is a really important part of scar work. Okay, so let's get into it. So I'm going to use this example here of this line on my hand. Okay, so we're going to pretend that is the scar. And so from here, I'm going to assess the scar. So when I'm assessing it, I'm going to pull each direction. So I'm kind of pulling to this side. And then let's say I'm going to come on this side. And you can see how this moves a little bit more than this side does. Okay, this feels a little bit more restricted. So I can come down here. This doesn't move as well. And this moves a little bit more. So we can do this on any angle. We can come on a diagonal with it. right? So we can pull different directions. And essentially you're looking at the elasticity of this tissue because we want our tissue to move freely. Okay, so that's how you can assess your scar. You can also assess the sensitivity of it. So does it feel very hypersensitive? Because as I mentioned, we have a lot of sensory nerves in our fascia. So it could feel almost burning or super hypersensitive. And in this case, we would do actually some scar desensitization before performing the actual scar massage. So that would be how you assess the scar. So essentially you're kind of going in and around the scar. You can assess on it and around it to be able to see what feels restricted. So next up, if the scar was sensitive, then you can use a washcloth and you can gently massage over the scar. So this is going to help to desensitize the scar. So typically you only need to do this for a few days. It's maybe not even, but it could be very, very helpful. And it can also be an opportunity to connect with the scar and help with the nervous system regulation as it relates to the scar and the injury or surgery that you might have had. Next up is how to treat the scar. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is a more general technique. So from here, I'm going to have you do some circles, moving the skin over the tissue. So we're not massaging over it, but you're actually moving the skin over the tissue. So I'm going around the scar right now, but then I can move on the scar. And so this gives you a better sense as well as how the scar is moving and in all directions. You'll start to see where it feels restricted, where it feels tight. It definitely might feel a little painful in certain areas. So you can start to see what feels restricted. Then you can begin to come on top of the scar and do a smudging technique. So I'm placing pressure on the skin and I'm going up and down, up and down. So again, I'm moving the skin over the tissue. You can also go side to side. So side to side here. And so we can do this smudging technique over the whole scar. So it can be a really nice technique. And then the most specific technique is actually how we assessed. So this is where if you find that, let's say this is really restricted. So as I pull this, I'm going to hang out here. So I'm just hanging out, letting it release. You'll feel a softening of the tissue. So you'll feel that's the best way to explain it, is you'll feel a softening of the tissue where it just feels a little bit more free. And you know that that has had a nice fascial release. Okay, so there are some basic techniques on how to assess and hopefully how to treat. You know that it doesn't matter how old your scar is, but it is really important to honor any emotions that may come up with compassion, of course. And just know that the importance of scar massage is so valuable, meaning that there are so many things from scar work that can really unpack a lot of things as it relates to your health. For example, if you've had shoulder pain and you have a history of a shoulder surgery, for example, and you had scars from the surgery, if those scars are not addressed, it is going to inhibit most often some of the musculature, oftentimes some of the stabilizing muscles. So there could be more input, neurological input to the scar, in which can create these neuromuscular imbalances. If you've had a C-section, it can be one of the most important things to do to address if you have any kind of gut issue. If you have a scar in your knee from falling, but you're having hip pain or knee pain, same idea, really important. So it doesn't have to be localized to that area. It could be distant, but just know how important it is to address scars. And even, by the way, tattoos are scars. So those are also something that once they're healed, they are great to work on as well. So very, very important part of movement, healthy movement in your organs and in your body. And if this was helpful, give it a like, give it a share. Make sure you throw a comment down if it's been helpful for you and how you use scar massage. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Movement Paradigm, for weekly tips on mindset, nutrition, movement. And you can feel free at any point to reach out for a discovery session. We would love to help you on your journey to feeling your best. And you can also join us on our Movement Paradigm app, where we focus on whole body health and we do lots of fun challenges, movement, nutrition, mindset, nervous system, all the wonderful things. So hope to see you soon. Bye.